one job. We don't have to worry about the recorder's aspect of it. That is a separate office in Pima County. So the elections department, some of the biggest things that we're responsible for, we handle candidate filing with county candidates in our office. We handle programming the election, getting everything that goes on that ballot together. That's us who puts that together. We handle all election day voting. So setting up all of the vote centers throughout the county, making sure they're staffed, getting all the supplies out there to them. Early voting and by mail voting, that's handled by the recorder's office. We also handle ballots, processing them once they go through the recorder side. They then come to the elections office, and I have a short video as part of my presentation that'll show you what we do with those early ballots. And then we're responsible for tabulating, for counting all the ballots and posting the results. So we do a lot of other things, but those are the big things that the elections department does. All right, so creating fancy titles for presentations is not a strength of mine. So it's going to be talking about the November 5th, 2024 election. I'm going to try to cover a few different topics in this presentation. So first off, the 2024 general presidential election. What's new? What are some of the challenges that we face in this election that are a little bit different than other elections? I'm going to talk about securing the ballot. Part of that is going to be showing you a video about the whole ballot process. When you turn in your early ballot, what happens with that? All the way up from when it gets back to the recorder up to when it gets counted. And then hopefully I'll be able to have time to talk a little bit about protecting voters and protecting election workers at the polls on election day. That is, again, as the elections department, that's our focus, election day voting at the polls. So we try to take every effort we can to make sure that poll workers as well as voters have a great experience on election day. So we'll talk about what we do to ensure that. And then time permitting, we'll talk a little bit about what you can do. If you want to become active in elections, the different jobs and opportunities that are available to you with the elections department. And if we don't have time for that, you can certainly talk to me after the fact and I can tell you about how to get involved. So the presidential election, if anybody did not know this, that is the election that is happening this November. I'm sure everybody is getting tons of mail, every other commercial. We see it and we know about it. But one of the big things about a presidential election is this is when everybody shows up to vote. And there's a lot of people who don't vote every 2 years, don't vote every election. This is the first time that they voted since 2020 or 2016. So Dana mentioned earlier that Pinal still uses precincts. Pima County uses vote centers. And we made that switch in 2022. So there are a lot of voters who are probably still not aware of that. So they may think that their old precinct-based polling place is still in existence, that's where they still go vote on election day. So part of our push right now is still emphasizing that Pima County uses vote centers. We have the list of everywhere where you can go vote on election day, posted on our website. But it's going to go out with the sample ballot. We're trying to make sure everybody knows that. That's how you vote in Pima County. So it may make things more complicated for Dana, but we are trying to emphasize that. Another issue that you're going to have on election day voting especially is potentially longer lines, wait times. It's always a dangerous game to predict turnout in an election, but I can say pretty confidently that presidential elections always have the highest turnout. So we never know. Most people do vote early or by mail, but you never know how many people are going to come in on election day. And this could end up being a whole lot of people. That means a lot longer lines and possibly wait times at the vote centers. So we're making sure all of our vote centers are stocked with plenty of ballot stock, ballot paper, because the ballots are now printed on demand at the vote center. Make sure we have plenty of poll workers. We have backup printers. Every vote center gets at least 2 printers now. We're trying to make every effort we can to make sure that we get everybody in and out as quickly as possible. We've also increased the number of voting booths in many of these locations as well, because that's going to be the big holdup with this election. It is a big ballot, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. 34 plus candidate races in Pima County, including all of the judges. Depending on where you live, you might have a handful more. And the big deal is there are 13 or more propositions on the ballot. This takes up a lot of ballot real estate. And if you have not planned ahead, if you don't know what you're going to vote on, this can make for a very long experience for every voter. It could take anyone 20 or 30 minutes to vote. So one of the things that we're encouraging everybody to do is to make a plan. Whether you're voting early, whether you're voting by mail, whether you're voting in person on election day, make a plan. Get that sample ballot, fill it out. You can bring it in to the booth with you on election day, and then it's just copying over the ovals from what you already have. So make a plan, be prepared, and it'll make everything go a lot smoother on election day. So two-card ballot. This is something that is brand new in Pima County. It's brand new for a lot of different counties throughout the state. Some people got lucky and do not have to do this, but for a lot of us, we are going to a two-card ballot. So what does that mean? Everybody, as far as we can tell, I have not met anybody who had experienced a two-card ballot in Pima County before. Every time that you voted your ballot, it's been one page. You'll have races on the front. You may have races on the back. We now have two cards. This doubles the amount of paper, of course, that goes in every envelope. It doubles the amount of paper that we have to process coming back. And it also means you have to know that you need to fill out everything on the front and the back of both cards. So that's another big push that we're trying to make sure everybody's aware of. It's a big ballot. It's 19 inches long and 4 pages in total, 2 cards front and back of both sides. So vote both cards, vote both sides. There's a lot of challenges with this. I won't get into all of them. A lot of them are internal with us. We're still looking at our processes. You can imagine when you go from 500,000 pieces of paper to 1 million, it makes things a lot more complicated. It can potentially lead to longer processing times, especially Dana mentioned with those late earlies, how long they take to process. Well, now all of these are going to be 2 pages instead of 1. So this could further lengthen the times when it comes to processing. Though, of course, we will make every effort to get everything counted as soon as we can. So this is an example of what the ballot looks like. The front page of the first card for everyone is going to look virtually identical. We were able to get all the candidate races on the front of that first card. There's a handful of precincts that might have, I think, a fire district race that'll go to the back of that first card. But by and large, that's what your first card looks like. And then you have all of those propositions going on the back of the first and on the second card. So make a plan. Know how you're going to vote, especially if you go in on election day, and be prepared. All right, a couple places to go to find election information in Pima County. We like to hit on this too as well. One of the best ways to combat misinformation is to get all of your information from the source. So pima.gov/elections, that is our elections department homepage. That is where you can go to see the full text of all of these propositions right now. When we get the write-in candidate list, that'll be up there. Vote center list, you can pull it up there. It's in an Excel format as well, so you can reformat it to find your location by zip code. And another website that is a great website is pima.vote. Our communications team put this together, sort of a combination between the elections department and the recorder's website. So anyone can go to this site. You can link to both of our sites, and it has a lot of cool things on it. There's an interactive vote center map. So you can go in, type in your address, find the closest election day vote center to you within a 5 to 10 mile radius. You can do the same thing with early voting sites as well. You can type in your address, pull up your sample ballot, so you can access it right there, get it that way. We also have a wait time widget. So with electronic poll books, you can measure wait times live at the vote center. And we know that this could be a potential issue on election day with longer lines, longer wait times. We have the e-poll book set up to be able to track wait times at each vote center and update this live. So before you go out and vote on election day, if you choose to do that, it's a great idea to check in with this, see what kind of wait times you're looking at. And the site 2 miles away from where you usually go might have a 5-minute wait time versus the 45-minute wait time. We're not going to say that. 25-minute wait time. That's the longest we're going to get to. Yes. All right, so ballot processing in Pima County. Could do a whole presentation on this, but I'm just going to give you kind of a brief rundown of how it works. So early ballots, once they are received by the recorder's office, whether they are mailed back in or whether you vote in person at an early voting site, they're received by the recorder's office. And you saw a little bit of that in Dana's video. So they go through the signature verification process. Once that happens, they are transferred over to the elections department. It's kind of cool in Pima County. The recorder shares a building with us. They literally open one side of the door, we open the other side, they bring them right into us. So the ballots still in their affidavit envelopes are transferred to us. We have early boards, which are bipartisan teams of workers that go through, open the envelopes and then separate the ballots from the envelopes. We make sure they're all accounted for and then send them on to tabulation. And if you didn't know, you can track your ballot all the way through this process if you use an early ballot. So you can track it, see when it gets to the recorder, see when it's gotten to us, and see when it has been sent to count and counted. Election day ballots are done a little bit differently. Of course, they don't go through signature verification because you're providing ID at the polls. So these all come back to us on election night, sealed in their ballot boxes. We check those. We have different boards process them, make sure everything is accounted for, and then they're sent on to be counted on election night or early the next morning, as is usually the case. We compare all the ballot totals from there with something called the official ballot report that's filled out by the poll workers to make sure all the ballots are accounted for. We have the correct amount of ballots that we should have based on check-ins at that vote center. All right. And here's going to be a video that our communications team put together. This is from 2022. The process is still the same, but you may see the date 2022 on that a few times.
When you cast your ballot at a vote center on election day, it's not the end of the process, it's just the beginning. Once voting wraps up, elections workers must account for every voter checked in and every ballot cast. Regular ballots are separated from provisional or early ballots. Then, all ballot boxes and envelopes are sealed. Receipts are placed with each ballot box to document the number of ballots inside and then transported to the elections department for processing. Members of opposite political parties observe all the ballot processing procedures to ensure fairness and accuracy. Cameras at the elections department allow the public to view the entire counting process as well. Batches of ballots are then brought into the tabulation room, where elections workers and political party observers record the number of ballots in each batch. That number is checked again after the batch is processed. Election staff then run ballots through tabulation machines, keeping the batches together. Ballots that cannot be read, members of opposite political parties review the documents to determine voter intent as required in state law. In addition to counting votes, tabulation machines collect ballot images. Those images, the tabulation data, and the original ballots are all retained following an election. The paper ballots are transferred to the Pima County Treasurer, who is required by law to retain chain of custody of the records for 22 months. At the close of each day's ballot count, each tabulation machine produces a report showing the batches and number of ballots each machine counted. This report is kept with the ballot batch as well as provided to political party observers. Elections workers then prepare for tabulation data to be transferred to the election server. 2 elections workers open the tamper evidence seals on the server case. This action is logged and recorded. They then prepare the server to receive each tabulation machine's data, which is sent by a direct connection, not over the internet or by other wireless means. Neither tabulation machines nor servers are ever connected to the internet. Once transmission is completed, the server case is closed and resealed with a tamper evidence seal. This action is also logged and recorded. Once all valid ballots are counted and the data sent to the election server, the official elections canvass is completed and later submitted for Board of Supervisors approval.
All right, so let's hit protecting voters and election workers. I'll talk pretty briefly about this, and then I think we'll be out of time and it'll be up for questions. So a couple things I want to note about voters as well as election workers on election day. There are legal protections for you. Voter intimidation, voter harassment are crimes. They're crimes anywhere, but they're certainly crimes on election day at the vote centers. So this should never be happening. One of the best ways to protect against this is the 75-foot zone that surrounds every voting center on election day. No one is allowed in that zone other than poll workers, voters, and observers, essentially. So if you do run into situations, and we've been fortunate in Pima County to have very few situations, if you do run into them, it should just be with a lone person, an individual, a voter who may be upset about something. And we spend a lot of time training our poll workers, particularly our inspectors and marshals, so we're kind of in charge of overseeing this aspect of the vote center, on how to deal with potentially negative situations. No firearms are allowed at polling locations. Make sure everybody knows that. We talked about that 75-foot zone. There should be no electioneering, no campaigning in that zone. So this is another way that when people go in to vote, they should have a safe experience. They should not have to worry about anybody trying to convince them to vote for somebody else. They certainly should not have to worry about anyone trying to intimidate them. No media, and once you have voted, you need to leave the vote center. So training, we focus with our inspectors and marshals on a few specific things that we emphasize with them. A couple of these things are situational awareness, being aware of what's going on around you at the vote center. So the marshal, that's the title of the position, they sort of act as the sheriff of the vote center. They're going to spend a lot of time walking around on the outside on that perimeter, keeping an eye on everything going on, making sure that everybody out there with their campaign signs is staying outside of that 75-foot zone, making sure that you're not seeing anybody trying to harass voters, trying to interfere with the election. Inspectors are trained on that as well, and conflict resolution. You can stop a lot of situations before they start. We talk about the Clara method, remaining calm when you're dealing with people, listening to their concerns. And we go through some exercises in inspector and marshal training with them, practicing with each other. And just being part of this, I've been very impressed at seeing how our inspectors and marshals know and understand how to work with people. So we've been fortunate not to run into a ton of negative situations in Pima County. This year, this election, we're also starting an additional training course for poll workers based on scenarios at the vote center. It's kind of a more fun class. We run through a bunch of different voters, a bunch of different scenarios, be it with observers, someone campaigning, electioneering within that zone. It gives all the poll workers in this situation a chance to experience that and be better prepared for election day. So one thing that we emphasize is we have an elections hotline, and that is always available for all of our poll workers, anytime they run into a situation where they're uncomfortable with, they get on the phone with us. We've talked to the poll workers, we've talked to the voters, we can send someone out there if necessary. And if they ever run into a situation that is genuinely threatening a voter or an election worker, they can call 911. As well as call us. So we have good relationships with Pima County Sheriff's Office, all the local law enforcement agencies around the election. They're aware on election day of what's going on and the potential for negative occurrences. But like I've said, we've been very fortunate in Pima County that we have not had to deal with a whole lot of this. For the most part, Pima County has great people, great voters, and great election workers. I think I am out of time, so I will go ahead and stop there. If you do have any questions about working in elections, feel free to talk to me afterwards.
Thank you both. The presentations were great, and your video on the questions are indicating that they're really impressed with